For the months we couldn't bring friends into our homes, some of us brought in plants. We collected them on our windowsills, the only parts of our apartments that people could see. We squeezed them into our living rooms to add a natural touch to the very unnatural amount of time we spent watching TV. And the talking heads on TV casually slid them in their Zoom backgrounds in case we were paying attention, which we were. 6 months into the pandemic, some plant stores said they were making 5 times more than the year before. And it wasn't just the US. Sales soared in the UK, the Czech Republic, and India. And reporters in Singapore wrote about a, quote, botanic boom.
Everyone was stressed, right? Once we went to shut down and we had to stay home, people were confronted with the reality of their homes and where they were. Those who didn't have plants, they started to think, wow, all of the corners of my home are hard and cold. They were scrolling through and seeing how others were being affected by the pandemic, and you would then see more plants pop up in the spaces of others. They wanted to have that bit of life added into their homes as well.
Even before the plant-friendly confines of quarantine, the popularity of houseplants was steadily growing for almost a decade. And you've always been able to learn a lot from the little pieces of the outside that people bring in.
The story of houseplants is very much tied up with the history of the home. I was just astounded how far this story goes back. I mean, we are talking pre-Roman times, and particularly the Egyptians. During the 19th century, because of the Industrial Revolution, around cities, people were coming in from the countryside into these long ribbons of development, small houses, and they missed the countryside. That is when ferns really took off. And suddenly, there was an explosion of books and magazines on gardening. If you think of what we would call, classic Victorian homes, they're very dark, the drapes are very heavy, they're heated by coal. This was at a time when glass became much cheaper. Manufacturers just went berserk and produced the most exotic glass cases for people to keep plants in. What happened in the 19th century happened again after the Second World War. There was a boom in house building. Books came out, whereas previously, before the war, they tended to be in black and white. Now the colour printing took off. But it was a time when countries were vastly improving their propagation techniques. It's interesting looking at what's happening now because, surprise, surprise, the 3 things that come out again are improvements in technology, social mobility, and social media. We all know young people are really struggling to buy homes. They often have to live in rented accommodation with no garden or no outside space. These exotic plants, which were really quite tricky to grow, now they can be propagated by bud tips and micropropagation. And then social media. Houseplants are just the perfect square image. And there are influencers showing the homes full of these beautiful, beautiful plants. And we envy them and try and emulate them.
These plant-fluencers aren't just making having plants cool, they're making caring for plants cool too. And when plants are nurtured, they tend to return the favor.
I have about 200 plus plants throughout the entire house. When I started, and I brought in a plant that cost a little over $100. It was my first plant, and I didn't want to see it die. So I started focusing in on it, and then I would start to water the plants more and check out the soil, wipe down the leaves. And it was continuously doing this that I saw myself becoming less stressed, a bit more relaxed, a calmer individual. It's not about having the coolest looking plants out there. It's about thinking about what it takes to take care of a living thing, focus in on it. And in that time that you are nurturing, you will then be fulfilled, and then you yourself will then be nurtured.